Greetings everyone, and welcome to the next project for me, Mecha Prime. How you doing? We're gonna play The Legend of Zelda. It says third quest. This is actually a patch of a game called BS Zelda no Densetsu, BS standing for Broadcast Satellite. It was actually a game that was broadcast over the radio, downloaded from Nintendo and Cento Giga. Basically, it could only be played during a certain time. You had like an hour window or something like that to play it. You could choose a male or a female protagonist. There was no link in it or anything like that. It was pretty, good for its time. It was the first of its kind. What I'm going to be playing, though, is a patched version. It replaces the male and female with Link and Zelda, as you can see. And it also removes that time limits, real-time event type thing, and changes them to Triforce-based events instead, which makes it a little more playable for our purposes. So that's the only changes that have been made to this. Basically, what the third quest is a recreation of the classic Zelda for the NES. So this is going to be my way of LPing the classic Zelda for the NES, because that game is a little bit dated and kind of hard to watch through the entire thing. So we're going to register our character, and we're going to mix it up. We're going to play as Zelda here, because, Zelda doesn't get too many chances to save Hyrule. She did in that horrible, horrible CDI game, but we're not really going to talk about that. That one doesn't count. So anyway, welcome to BS Zelda no Densetsu. We are Zelda. We're going to collect our sword. This first part is actually controlled by the computer, by the way. I don't have control of the protagonist just yet. It is quite dangerous to go alone. However, we're going to take this wooden sword here from this old man in the cave, because that is how heroes do it. Can't actually hurt him. Alright. Those of you who have played classic Zelda for the NES will notice that the overworld is relatively unchanged, aside from getting a graphical upgrade and a music upgrade. This is basically classic Zelda. Now, a few things are a little bit different, but not different enough to make it too bad. Like I said earlier, there are events based on how many Triforce pieces we've collected. We will come up to those when I get to those points in the game, however. First thing we want to do, though, is just kind of get a feel for the area. I'm going to show off a little bit of the overworld, some places that we can go right now, and then we're going to take on the first dungeon. These red enemies are Octoroks. They walk around and shoot rocks at you. Not a big deal. The guy in the river there, though, is Azura. They are dicks in this game. Mainly because they're hard to hit if you don't have a ranged attack. And even if you do manage to kill them, you don't really get a benefit from them. Killing enemies in this game will net you pickups. You can get rupees. Sometimes you get bombs. It's kind of rare. You can also get hearts and blue rupees, which fill up 5 rupees. How exciting. You want to collect a lot of money in this game. This is one of the Zeldas where money actually matters a lot, because later on when you get arrows, the bow and arrow, spoiler, there's a bow and arrow in this game. Anyway, once you get the bow and arrow, your arrows are actually tied to how much money you have, and you use 1 rupee every time you shoot an arrow. So I kind of like that, because you don't have to keep refilling your arrows, but then again, you also use a lot of your money, which is better used for upgrades later on. This old man is giving us a blue sheet of paper that we have to take to the old woman. How vague. That's okay, though. Classic Zelda was this vague. We're just going to have to deal with it. Deal with that shit. Alright, a little bit more about the broadcast satellite version of the game. It was released on the Satellaview or Satellaview part of the Super Famicom in Japan. Never really got an American release or anything like that. Now, you downloaded the game, and then you had to tune into the broadcast at certain times, and that's when you could play the game along with the broadcast. As you were playing, from time to time, you would get a please listen sign that would pop up on the screen, and the game would pause, and you would have to listen to the narrator tell you part of the story as you go on. And then there were also events based on how long you've been playing, the time, etc., etc. Like I said, though, that part has been removed or changed. We're basically playing Zelda here. So anyway, it's time for the first dungeon! While the overworld hasn't changed too much, the dungeons, well, they're not changed a lot. A lot of the rooms are similar, the enemies are similar, the layouts are relatively similar, but the floor plans are vastly different. They're all shaped like letters for some reason. This first dungeon is shaped like an S. Was taking down some Stalfos there. Stalfos are the skeletons in the game. Arrows cost money to use. Well, you know, I did just mention that. But, you know, I can see how a new player, that would be vital information. But fuck that guy anyway. Anytime you try to attack the old men, they start shooting fireballs at you from the candles. They cannot be killed. Interesting little quirk. Alright, that's all that was down that path. Actually, the only benefit we got from that path was getting a compass and a key. We do have some bombs, though. I managed to grab those from an Octorok outside of the dungeon. That menu that you saw was how we switch between items. It can also show you where you are in the game. And later on, there's a different version of it that shows you how much of the Triforce you've collected, things like that. Time to fight some ropes, or snakes, or whatever they're called here. That clock power-up that I picked up freezes all of the enemies in the room. It is actually incredibly useful because this game is not very friendly to you with health. You can die quite a lot in this game if you're not careful. So we're going to be really careful. Doesn't matter though, because this shit is no problem for Zelda, because she is a tough old bird. I was gonna say a tough little bird, but she's not that little. She's tough. She was Sheik, remember? She's a ninja, and we didn't even know it. Although these little slimes are dicks, I hate them. Their movement pattern is a little weird. They move either 1 or 2 squares, and it's kind of hard to predict. They can nip off a little bit of a half a heart of health every time. Traps, a classic Zelda thing. 1 full heart of damage. Not friendly. And hey, look, it's a bow! Cool, I'm gonna be shooting some arrows at some shit now. Ready to go. Aw, yeah. Let's switch to that bow. Wait a minute. Hold on. Ah, shit. Yes, in classic Zelda, you also have to go buy arrows. Now, it's really weird. I mentioned earlier you don't have to pick up arrows, but you actually have to buy them initially to be able to use the bow. So, essentially, we got a bow in this dungeon that is useless to us right now. That's okay, though. We don't actually need it to beat the dungeon. The thing about classic Zelda is you don't really need the items to beat any of the dungeons. Well, you do need some of them to beat some dungeons, but let's just say it doesn't follow the standard Zelda, you must use this item in the dungeon to progress further kind of thing that a lot of the later games had. You basically use the items to be able to access different parts of the overworld that you couldn't get to before, so that's kind of the cool incentive for collecting items. There are ways to do, I guess, low percent runs of this game. There's even people who have done it without collecting the sword, which is really insane. You have to use bombs and things like that to damage stuff, and it can get pretty hairy later. But I'm not going to be doing anything like that. This is just going to be a regular playthrough, since it's already different enough by being the BS version. Hey, Stalfos, how you doing? Thanks for the key, buddy. These guys are walking around with their 2 rusty swords, and they're really happy about it, but they don't seem to be taking any swings at me, so I don't know what I'm doing. I think I'm just interrupting the little dance party there. What a dick we are. I wonder what Link is doing. Probably sitting at home, being lazy. Not saving the world this time. Alright, these guys are moblins, I believe. They are throwing boomerangs around. They take 3 hits to kill with our wooden sword, but they're not too deadly. They move relatively slow. The only thing you gotta watch out for is when they throw that boomerang. Ooh, and we got bombs in this room. That must mean I could bomb the wall! Nope. Maybe this one. Nope. Actually, they gave me bombs because you can actually cheese the boss of this dungeon with some bombs, and oh my god, there's wall masters. Alright, you can usually tell you're about to fight a boss when you can hear the boss growling like that. Sounds like my stomach growling. And also, usually there's a room full of wall masters right before it, or something of that sort. So welcome to the first boss, Aquamentus! How you doing? We saw him in Oracle Seasons. All you gotta do, though, is bomb him a few times, and he's dead. Not a big deal. It's okay, though. Don't worry, later bosses will get much harder than this. This was actually just an introduction to the game, a little bit of introduction to the mechanics of it, things like that. We've got our Triforce piece. Hell yeah. Zelda, don't need no man. That's for sure. And that's it! We've conquered the first dungeon already. Relatively simple. Anyway, that's gonna be it for this time, guys. I will see you next time. Later.